So if we want to just go one by one, you guys can do just a little quick introduction. We'll start on the end.
Oh, okay. Pick the wrong seat. Hi, everyone. Nice to have you all here. I don't know from where to start, but I just wanna the way I got into cosmetic chemist what inspired me. I was always when I was a kid I used to hide the expired drugs from my mom and just do my own lab and mix stuff together. And I always knew that I like creative stuff and making something new, inventing something. When I have my bachelor degree in pharmacy and biotechnology, and that was when I knew that I'm more interested in cosmetic skincare. And I decided to move to the States after I had a couple of associate degrees. I decided that this is the field I want to be in, and I wanted to know more about it. So I thought so I got certified nutritionist, so I know how the food will affect the skin and what's the effect. How can we merge nutrition and cosmetics together? Decided to move to the States because I wanted science. I wanted to do something and learn about science, not just making or enjoying a commercial or a product. I wanted to dig deeper into it. I have my master's degree from Fairleigh Dickinson University, and I picked the school because I wanted to be. I'm very technical, and I'm hands-on person. I'm not into academic much, which is a point that's important. You don't have to love studying, but it's different. On the bench it's different. Doing something is different than studying it. So don't ever feel scared of if you don't love if you're not studying is not your thing. You can always explore yourself in different areas. I had my master's. STC was a great opportunity for me. It was the first door I knocked when I came to the States. I literally blossomed within the STC because this is where I formed all my network, where I met all the people I know. I don't know if I'm taking so long. I'm sorry. And then, I worked, I got a job after my master's degree in L'Oreal. And then I moved to the Chanel, which was God's gift to me. And now I'm working on my own brand. And so thank you.
Dr. Evans?
Yeah, hi. My name's Trevor Evans. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for about 30 years now. I got my PhD from the University of Toledo. Oh, there was going to be some whoops in the crowd for that. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was before the cosmetic program was there. But and I got into this industry sort of by accident. I was just looking for a job, and I got hired by a company called Helen Curtis, who we used to be in Chicago. They got bought out by Unilever about 5 years later, and I worked for Unilever for another 11 years after that. And then I guess that's an interesting thing about this industry. It does change, right? So you're not going to work for the same company forever. I worked for a company that then got bought out. I got a company that then laid us all off because they were moving locations. But these are opportunities, and so I joined another company then, which is a small research institute in Princeton, and allowed me to do my own personal research. The thing I always liked about what I did was I interacted with so many different people. So I would work with formulation chemists, I would work with consumer scientists, I would work with process engineers, marketers, people in the claims world. Working for a big international company like Unilever, I'd also interact with people from different countries, and you'd see how things were different in different countries as well. And when I left and joined this little company, all of a sudden I got to do that for all the other companies in the field as well. So all of a sudden I started working with P&G. First time I ever worked into P&G, that was a weird thing. 11 years with Unilever, now I'm walking into P&G. That was really weird. Walked into L'Oreal. I actually walked into P&G with a Unilever backpack, of all things. But the thing about this industry I think is really nice is it's full of really nice people. You heard about mentorship. Just suck up as much information as you can from people. This show is like a big class reunion for me. I bumped into people I've known for 30 years. It's great to see them again. It's like let's put the band back together kind of thing. And so great bunch of people, lots of people to soak up as much information from as you possibly can, because you can't know everything, right? So know what you know, but know a bunch of people who know the stuff that you don't know. So I don't know much about formulation. I know enough to be dangerous, but I know a lot of good formulation chemists. I don't know much about consumer testing, but I know some really good consumer testing scientists. So just this weird world we're in now with social media and all that kind of stuff, which as old folks don't do so well, it's still about relationships. It's still about people who you've interacted with, people who you've worked with, people who you like working with, and 30 years later, you bump into these people and reminiscing over old good times. So.
Thank you. That's some great advice. Okay, Dr. Murray.
Hi, I'm Ken Marenus. I started in the industry 40 years ago, following a PhD in cell biology and electron microscopy and a postdoc in biophysics. And so how did I get into cosmetics? Well, first and foremost, I was a scientist and had a strong scientific background. Second thing is I needed a job, just like Trevor, you need a job. And what are you going to do with an electron microscopy background except go work at Mary Kay, opening a skin biology lab? So that's where I got started, was with Mary Kay for 40 years, running the skin biology lab, 4 years. And then I went to Estee Lauder Companies, and I was there for 32 years, skin biology, and then I moved to safety and toxicology and microbiology and analytical chemistry and all the other things. Working with all the experts around me, I think what Trevor said is really, really important. And what some of the previous speakers have said is really important. This is a very generous industry. People are very generous with what they know, and they're eager to share it. That's why I've enjoyed being associated with the Society of Cosmetic Chemists for over 30 years now, because it's a great place to meet people, fun people, willing to share. It's not like a bunch of pre-meds at a sports night. So, following all that time at Lauder, I also went into regulatory affairs and a bunch of other stuff. One of the things I realized, there are two things that I just want to say before we go on, is one, the chemist has to be the leader. You are the adult in the room a lot of times. I know those of you who've worked in corporate environments and deal with marketing folks and sales folks and all the folks with lots of interesting ideas. Sometimes you just have to be the one that says, I don't think that's going to work out, and be willing to do that. So you need confidence in yourself, and you need confidence in your training and your background. The second thing that's really, really important as you go through your career is building emotional intelligence. Knowing those around you, knowing what's driving them, knowing what's driving the interests of the company, knowing what's driving you. And that's something that doesn't come overnight, and it's not something that you ever stop learning. But it's learning how to interact with our human species and what they're all about in order to get the best outcome from everybody. So I retired from there in 2018, and I became president and CEO of the Independent Beauty Association, which is really a group. The mission is to help small to medium-sized companies thrive. And that's what we do. We do it through education, advocacy. We help people export, and we provide them networking opportunities. So that's it. 100 years old and dinosaur.
Thank you so much. Sarah?
Hi. See everybody. My name's Sarah Jindal. I work with Mintel, so I'm in market research, so in a completely different part of the industry. I've been with Mintel now for almost 8 years, but it's definitely not where I started my career. But it's been a really interesting evolution. My background is biology and biochemistry, so science background, I think, like pretty much everybody else. But I started kind of the same thing. I needed a job, and a friend of mine was working for an ingredients company, and they said, hey, we need someone with your background. Do you want to come on board and write our technical marketing literature and write patents for us? And I said, sounds boring as hell. I'll take it. Is there a paycheck? And that's how I started working in the industry. It's almost 25 years ago. So the majority of my career has been with a variety of different ingredient suppliers. I worked in distribution for a few years. But what I started to understand through everything that I was doing and working with marketing and product development and research was how important the understanding of the consumer was in all of that. I think sometimes when we work on the other side of the industry, we kind of forget that there's a person out there somewhere that's going to want to make the decision to put their money down to buy that product. So I think understanding their mindset, where they're coming from, what they like, what they don't like, became such an important part of the work that I was doing, especially when I was running marketing teams. And so I jumped ship and started working for Mintel 8 years ago, and I've never looked back. And it's been a really interesting place for me because it took me, I still work in beauty and personal care. That's the team that I run. But I get the opportunity to work across a variety of different consumer groups. And so it's really nice to get that broader perspective. We work in a bubble, I think sometimes in this industry, we stay in our little vacuum of beauty. But it's important to look outside of that and see what's happening in tech and in fashion and in art and design and food and all these other areas, because they have a really big impact on the consumer as well. So it's been really fun to kind of broaden my horizons. And I think everyone so far has given amazing pieces of advice. I agree wholeheartedly with everything everybody has said. I think one thing that I would add to that is to put in the work to build and maintain those relationships. I still have a standing lunch date with someone that I worked with 20 years ago. And, when I come to Suppliers Day, it's great because I get to see all my old colleagues and all my old friends in person. And it's nice that I've been able to maintain those relationships. And it does take work. And I think it's really important to, put in that work and foster those relationships, especially with people that, work in different areas of the industry that can really, again, just sort of expand your horizons, and you can do the same for them. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Last but not least, you, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Jones. I am the Regional Vice President, General Manager for Coast Southwest in distribution. I run a business. I have a degree in chemistry. Nobody taught me how to do that. I never really even thought that I would manage 25 different employees and build buildings and labs and spaces and all of that when I got my degree from Baylor in chemistry and environmental science, which I use none of, right? In terms of my environmental science side. Same thing, I needed a job when I graduated. My husband moved me to Dallas, and I fell into a contract manufacturing position. I was director of R&D for 15 years, which I think is dog years in chemistry at some point, because I formulated everything from dog care to sunscreens and made huge mistakes along the way. And the only way I learned was really by making those mistakes and getting good advice from people in the industry like Jacqueline and others. Really trusting in that supply chain and having adult conversations about, why did this fail? Why am I failing in this aspect of what I'm doing? Best advice I ever got was to talk and ask a lot of questions. And the best advice I can give you is to do it in person, because it's real easy to get into that Instagram, tweeting and sending out emails and asking questions that way, but not having a complete conversation and asking the questions that you don't even know you need to ask until you're in that conversation is the most important part about how you'll learn to expand your ability in what you're doing. So it's the only way I've learned how to do a business, right?
Yeah.
Ask a lot of questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I obviously have a set of questions, but these panelists are for you guys. So if you have any questions, I believe there's a mic on the floor. Feel free to ask. Okay. We have a question over here.
For the first panelist, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Basma, I'm sorry. I'm Basma.
Basma? I had a question about, you said that you became a certified nutritionist, correct?
Yeah, I did.
So,
Back home, not here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Were you able to connect that to knowing about skincare? Because I know a lot of people like to cut out sugar from their diet because sometimes it makes it worse for their acne and stuff. So I know they like to cut stuff off like that. Have you ever heard of people doing that, or is that something that you can back?
By research, yes. actually sugar has like so many bad effects on skin and health and your energy and everything. I personally try to cut sugar as much as I can on my daily life. And there's also other kind of food that's based on, but some of them individual. I have noticed myself cutting dairies has a great effect on my skin as well. It doesn't have to be the same for every person. Like having the vitamins you need, the nutrition, because it always start from your gut. That's what, no matter what you put on your skin, if you don't take care of your health and your what you eat, it's not like you're not gonna maintain that whatever you apply externally. So yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Any more questions? Awesome.
Our fifth panelist over here, I have a question about combining business and cosmetic chemistry, because I am pursuing a career in both, combining the two together. So what is the best way to manage a career hybrid between science and business? Because I'm not just, know about the science behind it, but I also know about the finances and the buildings and things like that that also go along with it. So what is the best way to bridge that gap between the two?
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, trial by fire is probably the best way to put it. I was pursued by Southwest to take this job, and when they asked me to be general manager, I went, no, I'm a lab rat. Like, I have no idea how to manage a P&L and look at profits and calculate a margin. Like, I have no clue how to do that. My recommendation is, if you're really interested in it, take some business courses if you can, because it's a lot of it's common sense, but a lot of it has to do with that balance of understanding the chemistry and being able to talk to chemists, but then again turn around and talk to a marketing team to say, you can't afford that. Like, you need to be able to look at a formula and understand the cost in a product, the bottle, all of it. I did a lot of that I didn't realize I was doing in contract manufacturing, because as head of R&D, I talked directly to the customer, so the end user that was actually going to sell the product. So understanding what it has to sell for, and then all the external pressures that come with it, the marketing, the overhead, all of that, to be able to recognize when a business was going to be profitable. I didn't take any business courses. It's 27 years of experience. Yeah.
If you don't mind, can I add something? Because I'm starting my own business. My company, I'm a founder and a CEO of Boötes. And I had the experience of the science, all my certificates or my education or my knowledge. And I worked for big companies. And big companies, you are very specialized in, like, I was in claims, in L'Oreal I was in like regulation, but in claims. And then I moved to the lab and just innovation, some part of development. And when I was in L'Oreal, it was innovation. So you don't have, in the big companies, you don't get to experience all the aspects. But I'll go back to what Eileen and Mary was saying. Ask. Don't be shy to ask. Now I'm doing my business. I have some, my family been in different kind of business back home, which is completely different model and different country and everything. But I thought a mentor in the business, and it helped me to build up. Because I'm also a startup and I have a budget and I can't afford spending money on everything. So for me, asking and learn how to ask the question and learn and find the right person. There's always a key person in every place. Find the key person, build the network and the connection, and you will always get the answers. That's how I did it. That's how I learned about it. And I'm still seeking, and I'm still I have one of the challenges that I'm having, that I don't have mentors in our industry, in the business area. I have a lot of mentors in the science. I have mentors in the marketing. I don't have in the business, and I'm still seeking this. So it's a journey. It never ends. You're gonna learn, but just don't feel shy. Don't ask for help. Ask. One other way that I would recommend, and I try to do this, but I'm an immigrant, so I'm going through my papers and stuff. So not my road wasn't easy, but startups, small companies, low budget companies, you're gonna wear multiple hats. You're gonna learn more. As she mentioned, contract manufacturer, you get exposed to different things. So if you really wanna go into business, try to expand your experience as much as you can. Seek people, get mentors in every you are in the science, you have mentors in the science, but you also important, if you have a vision, as Eileen said, if you have a vision, it will help you build your way early, early, and seek business mentors and ask them question. And if you are in industry and things start to open, like I was unfortunately because I decided to start my company 1 month before COVID, so it was even networking and building the network was very hard, and I'm still struggling with this a little bit. But now things start to open. I never missed an event for SCC. I always volunteered. I invested in myself a lot. Like I wouldn't go to a trip, but I will go to an SCC like event with $1,000 or $2,000, and I spend this. So ask if you didn't get the job, which is it happened to me because of my paper situation. I didn't get the job, but I thought that there's always a way to find it. So thank you.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
This is a question for any of the panelists, but what is something about the industry that you wish you knew before you entered?
Oh, God. Did you hear that? I get you in trouble every time.
Okay, do you want to tackle that?
You know what? This is actually a positive thing. Is that it doesn't matter what your background is or what your degree is in or what you studied. Like, there's a home for you. Because even though my background is in biology and biochemistry, I also have a master's in ecology and evolutionary biology. So we have that in common. And it was like, what the heck am I going to do with a master's in ecology and evolutionary biology? I'm going to work in beauty. But it doesn't make a difference. If you're interested and you're inquisitive, and I mean, my sister and I, we used to pick berries and make blush and lip stains when we were little kids. Like, who knew that this whole world was out there? I never had any, real understanding of the beauty industry as a whole and everything that's involved, from the ingredients to the packaging to literally everything. There's so much out there. And I think, if someone had said to me, it doesn't matter what you study, it doesn't matter what your background is, you find where your areas of interest lie, and there is a place for you. And nobody ever really told me that. So I'm telling you. And, don't think just because you get a degree in chemistry, which has obviously been demonstrated by all of us here, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a formulator. There's a lot of other things that you can do as well.
Run a business.
Yeah.
I think, that your mistakes are happy challenges, right? I think it would have been nice to know that not everybody knows everything like you think they do. Walking into a room full of SEC, 800 people at the New York meeting and listening to them argue over sunscreen, whatever, at the top going, I am so afraid to stand up and ask a question right now because they're going to make me feel stupid. Knowing that you're not stupid. It's a good question if it's your question, and guaranteed somebody else in the room has got it. And so don't be afraid to use your voice and ask those questions. There is somebody else that's asking just like you were. I was really intimidated when I joined this business. I know she thinks I'm crazy by saying that, but I remember feeling very small and very insignificant when I walked especially into the New York area. I'm from Texas, right? And what I realized is that the world is not that big and that it's okay to not know everything, right? So you're supposed to not know everything at this point. 27 years later, supposed to know a little bit more, right? You learn a lot, right?
Okay, I believe Dr. Marenus had.
So it wasn't a bad thing, but the amazing complexity of these products and how they're made and the contents, the different ingredients and the roles each ones are playing, and how that has to integrate perfectly with the package and the packaging material, and how the manufacturing has to be fairly precise, and the physics of scaling up from something on a bench to something at a pilot level to something, thousands and thousands of liters of product. I think the most interesting thing is that the broad, all the elements that have to come together to make something really good or make something work. And the other part that has been really, really interesting is how the industry changes, but it doesn't change. And so we're still talking about some of the same things we talked about 30 years ago, you know, retinol, vitamin C, alpha hydroxy acids haven't been around for a while, but they'll be back. And so honestly, it's the landscape in which you have to work is changing. There are dramatic changes in the business models for this industry. You know, the giant L'Oreals and Unilevers and Proctors and Lauders are, maybe they used to drive everything and everybody, but now there's this tremendous number of small indie brands that need help. There are a tremendous number, a lot of them go to contract manufacturers, so there's tremendous business in contract manufacturing. So the landscape of the industry in which we work is constantly changing. I think that's really interesting too. You have to kind of keep an eye on that while you're trying to navigate.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on Ken's point. You know, we go to school, we learn all this stuff in classrooms, and then you get to industry, and there's the practical side of things, which you never got taught. And there's so much more when the rubber hits the road. Ken talked about all those ingredients. Well, all of our ingredients have to be qualified by analytical chemistry. You have to make sure that they are in spec. You can't just buy an ingredient from one person, because if that one person goes out of business, you've got no ingredient. So you have to have a backup supplier. So you have to test all those ingredients as well. There's just so much stuff that goes on. And then, I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say here. The most difficult part about the consumer industry is the consumer. The consumer will say the most bizarre things. And marketers hear this and say, okay, we've got to do that. And you know, this is again is where you have to sort of just realize this. Consumers love that conditioner over that conditioner. Why? It's got a better fragrance. You know, nothing to do with all the fancy surfactant science and all that stuff you learn in school. Has a better fragrance. Everybody will say they like it. This was a test I'm sure many people have done. Make a batch of conditioners, split it into sub-batches, fragrance them with something different. It's the exact same conditioner, just with different fragrances. The consumer will absolutely swear that one works better than the others. Doesn't it? It's just the halo effect of fragrance. Thicken it up a bit. The consumer will swear it's better than the one that isn't thickened up. It's the same thing. So you know, a huge thing in our industry, I would say, is differentiating between what is the science and what is it the consumers are saying. Just have to recognise that sometimes what the consumers say isn't the same as the science. You just have to sort of go with the flow, you know.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Any other questions? Okay, I have a question. If you were to go back 5 years, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Only 5 years?
5 years.
5 years.
That's it, 5 years.
Hold on. I mean, the way COVID has changed the way we do business, you know, learn how to use Zoom, right? Figure that out, right? And just be prepared, because the world has shrunk, and it's just really challenging to stay ahead and on top of everything that is happening. Our business in particular has had leaps and bounds of growth over the past 5 years. And I thought I was busy then, and now I just can't keep up. And so hire well, hire good people, and be prepared, because it's coming.
Yeah, I think be flexible. I think being agile, because I mean, we've all seen so many things change over the last 20, 30, however many years we've been in our career. But the last 5 years, the acceleration that we see every few years in terms of how quickly things are changing and evolving, it just, nothing's slowing down. And I think the biggest lesson I've learned up to this point in my career is to just be flexible and roll with the punches and adapt and adjust, because you're going to constantly do that, you know, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate the ride as you're going through the ups and the downs. And they're both. You have to say, wait a minute, this is really interesting because, or I'm getting something out of this. as much as it's the biggest disaster in the history of the company, and it always is, I'm learning something from this, or I'm seeing something I never saw before. Just appreciate the ride and don't worry about fighting against the gravity.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I got anything to add. I mean, to Ken's early point, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You know, it's there's always new issues, but they're sort of related to previous issues. So, yeah, I mean, the bizarre thing, I suppose, is that how many small companies there are now. You know, everybody can just say, I'm going to go to a co-packer, make me a formula, and I'm going to sell my product. And people are being successful. And, you know, really what a lot of the big companies now do is they don't necessarily develop new brands themselves. They wait for somebody else to do it, and then they buy them. Which is a strategy a lot of people are going for. I'm going to set up my own company, I'm going to sell it to somebody, I'm going to wait till my non-compete is over 2 years' time, and I'm going to do it again. There's people who are actually doing that. So, you know, the whole virtual thing has it's been perhaps the biggest change in our industry. And, you know, I do a lot of contract testing work for people on testing. Goodness gracious, there's a lot of small companies, you know, there really is. So it's and they're the ones who are doing a lot of the innovative stuff. The big companies are just sort of sitting back now and buying the little companies. So.
Okay.
I think they said everything. I just focus on your goal and your vision, and know that everywhere you go, you have something to bring to the table. Don't waste your energy much on trying to fit within a place, because you have your own identity, and you're original yourself, and you have something to add. So focus more on this, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
This is for, I guess this could be for any of the panelists, but is it Lisa? So I'm also in Texas. And I have a question about if y'all think that just getting started in the industry, if geographic plays a big role in starting off. So I guess what I'm asking, do you think that it's better to move to the East Coast and really be centered around where a lot of these companies are? Or just recommend finding a company somewhere else if geographic plays a location in that?
Can I answer a question with a question?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Where in Texas?
Oh, Dallas.
State, Dallas. Okay.
Dallas. Mm-hmm.
So I think geographics matter for sure. As a company, we've had to address the entire United States. You've seen the Coast Southwest logos all over the place, on the front door and everywhere. We started in California, the company did. We've moved to Dallas. We have a location now on the East Coast. A lot of that has to do with the way business has changed. Because we are talking about brands and the way brands are identifying raw materials and who to purchase from and how to formulate with, we've had to address the entire country. Otherwise, our materials are not being bought in California anymore because a brand on the East Coast is saying that you have to buy this cetyl alcohol from the supply chain, even though I've got it located in Dallas, right? So I think yes and no, because I now am addressing the country from Dallas, right? We're putting locations all over the place. It's kind of key to be in a central location where there are other companies that are located. If you told me you were in Lubbock, I'd say move, right? Dallas, Fort Worth has a nice, lovely group of contract manufacturers, and obviously Mary Kay, right? In the center of it. You need to be close to some place that has a lot of people working in the industry in order to be successful. It would be very difficult to be in the middle of nowhere and run a business, start a brand. But it can be done because of Zoom, because of what the world has become at this time. So,
but I think building your network, it's better and easier to do that in person.
Correct.
So if you're somewhere where there's one company, you're going to struggle to really have that expanded network within the industry, which I think all of us have said in some form or another that having that network to support you is really critical, especially if you have an area where you might not have a strength that you need. You find someone in your peer group that has that strength, and that person becomes part of your network, and you can kind of exchange with one another. So I think if you've got a variety of companies that are working in the same industry in the same area, you can build that network. But if you don't, you're going to struggle with that.
That's where the SCC is a tremendous asset to you as a chemist, because there's the local chapters which are open and welcoming and frequently a lot of fun, and they have good speakers. But the important thing is you get to meet everyone in your region when you go to the local chapter meetings. And then there's a national organization where you can meet, once or twice a year in a central place and hear science and meet and network and talk to the people, because it's very small, the industry. And once you start meeting people in the different regions, they know the people in the other regions. So I would take maximum advantage of the SCC membership. There is no other organization that supports the chemist or the individual as much as the SCC. It's not like a union, but it's probably the closest thing we have to an organization that supports the chemist, because PCPC and the other trade associations, they support the businesses. The SCC is for you.
And just to give some examples of what people have been saying, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I'm right in saying the New York chapter is as big as pretty much all the other chapters put together. So, you're obviously going to meet more people. I've given a couple of presentations at the Michigan chapter. Everybody works for Dow or Amway. So, there's much more diversity, obviously, in the bigger areas. But is there a Texas chapter? Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So,
Southwest chapter.
all right.
Yeah.
They're like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
California's large too.
Okay.
Yeah. California and New York are the two largest chapters, for sure.
I would confirm on the SCC. I said I blossomed within them. I know no one in the States, I know no one in the States, not in my industry, nothing. And this was the first door I knocked, and it was a fortune for me, because I was able to connect with people and know more about the industry and know more about the people. I didn't know how fun it is, how everyone is nice, literally. Everyone in our industry is nice, everyone is welcoming, everyone is helpful. And I've attended the Dallas chapter as well in Texas. So whenever you try to go somewhere, look for the events and go attend. Like it's like a family. It's connected. I was fortunate that I moved to New Jersey, so New York was the biggest chapter. Now I live in Maryland, and all the network and the time I invested in SCC is actually what making me carrying my business over, because I know the people already. So I just shoot an email, and we already had personal connection from before. Also, where you work at the company, wherever company you work for, try to be in contact with suppliers, because this is how you start in the industry. This is how you build the network. You can move anywhere around. It's all connected, But it's always easier to start where the majority of the people or the network is.
And don't forget there is an IFSCC as well, if you want to take it to a whole other level again.
Yeah.
Actually, IFCC was the reason I got into the lab in L'Oreal. So I got into regulation by just networking and asking people, and even I think the person who gave me the advice on how to get into L'Oreal was someone I never met through a classmate. But I went to FSCC and I met someone in the lab. I got introduced myself and I connect with her on LinkedIn. I shot her a message on LinkedIn when I was in regulation, and she never responded. As Eileen said, not all the people are able to get. Sometimes I actually don't check my LinkedIn now as much. I have 11,000 people on LinkedIn, and I don't check anymore. But when I got into, we met in a lunch room, and she was excited that I got into here, and I was like, yeah, but I'm still interested to get into the lab, and she was the reason I moved. So CC.
Thank you guys.
Any more questions?
Just gonna add something, if you don't mind. Beauty Independent has helped me a lot with also the business aspect. I remember when COVID started, there was a virtual meeting with Bobby Brown and a major icons in the industry, and I was so proud just to be an audience there. So it's also another channel for different segment, but you will get a lot to learn from it, and about the indie beauties, new ideas, and it's been very helpful for me as well.
Great. Okay. I have a question. So obviously, as students, we don't have much experience in the industry and haven't really dealt with failure. As you were saying in your introduction, can you give an example of a time that you failed and what you did to, kind of learn and recover from that?
I have a
You-
really
go
great
go
one.
ahead. Go ahead.
So one of my very first veterinary products, I had to make a 20% dihexylene gluconate wash, and a 2% dihexylene gluconate wash, and I forgot that it was 20% active. Mhm. I made 8,000 16-ounce bottles with 2% of a 20% dihexylene gluconate. It went out to the marketplace. The competitor came back and said, you're not following the rules. This doesn't meet. My customer called me and was complaining about the price to begin with at the 2%, at 20%, and said that it was failing in the testing out in the marketplace. And I just, oh no. And this customer said to me, what? And I explained what I had done. And I said, we have to take all 8,000 bottles back. We have to pour them back into a tank. We have to adjust this batch, and I have to raise your price, like all of it, the whole thing. And he went, "Are you going to be okay? Do you need me to talk to your boss for you?" And I just started crying on the telephone because he was concerned about my job, and I'm concerned about the fact that I put product in the market that did not meet the standard of what it needed to be. I have never made that mistake again. I always look at the activity of a raw material before I formulate with it. But it's things like that good people, you talk about nice people, he could have had a complete opposite reaction to that than what he did, which was to protect my job, to protect me as a person, and give me the ability to fix it.
Yeah,
right?
That's very nice.
So yeah, always look at the activity.
Good to know. Good to know.
Biggest advice.
Sure, it's a failure, but one of the weirdest things was getting laid off. I'd never had a bad review from this company. They'd always told me, my lab was something to be proud of in the company, and all of a sudden they had a reorg and I got laid off. And honestly, the first thing that came to my mind was, great, I can try something else. So this is the world we live in these days. Companies are, I think the people who work in the big companies will tell you, they're always restructuring. They're always reorganizing. And these sorts of things happen, but it's I'm not quite sure it's a failure, but it is a big moment in your life when you get laid off from a company who you've worked for 16 years. But again, it's the opportunity to try something new. It's the opportunity to use all those networks that you have in place and help them find something else again. And I walked away from this company with the years worth of severance package. I started on a job the week after I left with a new one. So it all worked out, so.
And that's a great mindset to have, especially after being with that company for so long. You weren't really worried about it. You were just, okay, what's next? What can I do next? So that's a great mindset to have.
Okay, so I'm a chemist. I formulate every day, and formulation is all about failure. You fail a lot until you get one successful formula. I remember in one of the companies I worked for, we were working on a great innovation, new idea that involves different, not only chemistry, but physics and different areas. And I left the company and we didn't finish the product, I had 200 or 300 formulation doing it. And so it's part of my job to fail. So and being agile again and adapting with this and accepting this and keep going, and I think the passion play a big role in it. The other thing that I wouldn't say I failed, but it was at least that's how I felt at the moment. Again, because I'm an immigrant and my work permit was changing based on the school and everything. So I had a moment where I went to numerous interviews, and in every company I reached the VP, and they are very welcoming. And they even show me the bench and where I'm gonna work. And then, have you met the HR when they hear about my paper? And then it stops. I've been in this virtual circle for so long, and it was very exhausting and very tiring. And I think you just keep knocking doors, and there's one door will open, and if no doors open your own door. So yeah.
Some great advice.
I remember when I was first starting off and I was in Dallas, and I had a boss who was, been in the industry for many, many years. And I was doing these multiple projects at the same time, and all the deadlines were coming up at the same time. And I was going a little frantic, and he said, calm down. You're going to get it done. It'll get done. And if it isn't, it's only lipstick.
I've said that too. Yeah, rocket science, not brain surgery.
Actually, lipsticks are very, very challenging.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sitting here trying to think of like one specific, but there's so many. What I'll say is, I think the key thing is obviously to be honest about your mistake, communicate that as proactively as you can to try to avoid as much fallout as possible. But I view every wrong answer, mistake, whatever it might be, as a learning opportunity, because you'll never do it again.
Never. Absolutely. You'll never forget it.
And you'll never forget that you did it. I mean, I've been involved in lots of product development and product launch, projects, and they were just a disaster. But nobody that was involved in that team was willing to put their hand up and say, like, what are we doing? Somebody's got to be that voice in the room that has to be like the gut check person that says, I think we're heading in the wrong direction, or I don't think this is, what we intended when we started out on this project, whatever it might be. Like, don't be afraid to be the person that puts your hand up and says, I don't know about this, because somebody else in your group is thinking the same thing and is also terrified to put their hand up and say, we're messing this up. So,
Yeah, and that goes back to the mentorship talk as well. Be the voice, speak up.
Yeah, someone's got to do it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we have time for probably one more question.
This is a question for any of you, but for those in like managerial type roles, how was the transition to that? Because for me, I don't imagine myself as someone who would be successful at managing other people. I really like to do like independent work. I know that's not something that obviously is going to be successful, but how was that transition for you guys to get into that role where you had to manage others?
It was tough.
It's a whole new skill set that you have to sort of develop and hone.
Yeah, so when I said no, I'm a lab rat. I'm not leaving the lab to go manage people. Well, what I realized was managing people is not, that is the most challenging role I've ever taken, is managing various types of people, from a truck driver to a brilliant chemist who has no common sense whatsoever, to salespeople, to all their different, the different ways that they pull you in all the different directions. The best thing you can do is make the best business decisions that you have to make, and sometimes you got to put your big girl panties on and make really hard decisions, and that some people don't like. You can't be popular. It's what's right for the company, what's right for you as a person, and what's really, whether they know it or not, right for them as well. And that's a challenge. You have to put your emotions aside sometimes, and that's difficult. But it's very, very rewarding when you come together as a group and are able to accomplish what we've been able to accomplish. Like, I'm so proud of the work that I do and that my team does. And so that's the reward that you get from taking on that challenge. And so getting to know your people, getting to understand what they need, that's critical.
Thank you.
So there's two kinds of managing. There's the formal kind of managing, like, you work in my department, I got to do your review, and I got to do that kind of bullshit. And then there's the real managing, where you're interacting with the people around you, and you have a point of view, and you have an idea, and you want to get that idea across. That's the more important management than worrying about people going around and doing stuff. And by the way, if you work in that kind of company, get the hell out. Go find yourself a company where people are, they're accepted as individuals, They're all they're all members of the team, and you're all trying to do something that's aligned and for the common good. The other kind of company, don't even go near it. Disaster.
Yeah, and it's the same for me, like for the teams that I manage. I don't even think of myself as being their boss. We're just all working together to put forward the best product that we can put forward, or whatever that project is that we're working on. I pull my weight and I do as much of the work as they do. I don't just, oh, well, I don't have to do that. Like, I'm in the trenches with them, because it's the best way to understand not just who they are as individuals, how they work, where their strengths lie, but also just to understand how you can contribute to making them a better employee. Because I think the best managers I've ever had through my career are the ones that are willing to sit down next to me and work side by side with me and help me to get better at whatever it is that I'm doing. And those are the people that I still count today as friends, because they really, they didn't just sign my paycheck, they taught me something, and they helped me to advance my career and my knowledge base and my expertise, et cetera, et cetera.
I think I first became a manager because I'd just been doing it longer than anybody else. He's been here so long, asking what to do, and before you know it, you're managing people. I agree with everything that people have said so far. Difficult thing is when you don't have a good employee. Not every employee is going to be a good one. So when it really, really gets difficult is when you've got people that aren't really working out, and that can become a real big issue. Best advice I ever got from the woman who was really my mentor in the management area: you can't make everybody happy. Most of the time, half the people are going to like you and half the people are not going to like you. You just have to live with that. You ask everybody their opinion, you weigh it up in your mind, and you do what you think is right, as people have said before, based on the science, based on ethics and all those sorts of things. But the toughest bit is that we'd all like everybody to like us, but that's just not going to be the case.
You have to have a thick skin, a little bit of a thick skin, because it's not a popularity contest, and you're not there to be people's friends. I'm managing someone right now who I consider to be a very close friend, and we've worked together for a really long time. But when I have conversations with her about her career path and things like that, I have to put all of that to one side and have a very different approach with her.
You have to realize that it's not personal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's business, it can be personal at times. But when someone chooses to leave or someone chooses to have a difference of opinion, it isn't a personal affront. It is a business thought process that you have to go down. You have to be willing to explore those other options. Otherwise, everybody's just a Me Too guy, and you're doing what they're telling you what you want to hear.
Right. Okay. Thank you all. I needed to hear that.
Well, let's give our wonderful panelists a round of applause for their wonderful advice.